I'm Scott Matheson and I'm a Principal Policy Officer for SEPA. My background is in aquatic wildlife and I'm going to talk today about all the freshwater topics. We're going to discuss our rivers and canals, lochs and the groundwater beneath us. Although our rivers and lochs only cover around 2% of Scotland's land, they contain more than 90% of the total amount of freshwater in the UK. Loch Ness alone contains more water than all the lakes in England and Wales combined. There are approximately 125,000 kilometres of rivers in Scotland, and these vary from small highland burns to the deep, wide lowland rivers such as the Tay. There's also a 220-kilometre canal network, which was built between 1768 and 1822, and this ranges from the Highland Caledonian Canal, the Crinan Canal in Argyll, and the Forth and Clyde and Union Canals in the industrial central belt. Let's take a closer look at the lochs. There's a concentration of lochs in the west and northwest. Many of them are very small. Scotland only has 8 lochs over 20 kilometres square in area, but those make up a significant part of the total area, whereas about 18,000 lochs, which are smaller than a rugby pitch, about 0.01 kilometres squared, together they only make up a small amount of the total area. Groundwater refers to the water below the water table, and that underlies almost the whole of Scotland. Its depth, its quality, quantity and its importance and value to society vary a lot across the country for a number of reasons, but mainly due to the surrounding rocks. Our fresh waters bring Scotland's people and economy a whole range of benefits. In terms of the economic benefits, lochs alone have been estimated to contribute between around £1.4 and £1.5 billion a year to Scotland's economy. Whisky industry supports about 36,000 jobs and was worth nearly £4.2 billion to the Scottish economy in 2012. In terms of food and drink, it's extremely important. For example, all of the water used by the bottled mineral water industry in Scotland comes from groundwater, and up to 14.7 million litres per day can be abstracted for that purpose. Fishing in our rivers and lochs supports around 2,800 jobs and generates nearly £50 million in wages and self-employment income for Scottish households. A considerable number of relatively unpolluted and undamaged rivers are found in Scotland with natural, physical, chemical and biological diversity. And we have many deep unpolluted lochs with wildlife that thrives in nutrient-poor waters. Scotland's freshwaters are incredibly important in biodiversity terms. Scotland hosts a large proportion of the world's blanket bog pools and lochans. We have unique groups of freshwater plants, and that naturally includes species found in both North America and Europe, which is very unusual. We have several internationally rare invertebrate species in our freshwaters, including some of the world's largest surviving populations of freshwater pearl mussel. In cultural terms, Scotland's freshwaters are very important. The dramatic setting of many lochs and the myths and folklore associated with some of those lochs, such as Loch Ness, make them a popular tourist attraction, and they have been since Victorian times. It's the combination of lochs and hills that creates many of Scotland's iconic landscapes. The Kelpie sculptures at the Grangemouth Sea Loch on the Forth and Clyde Canal are a reflection of both the mythology and the industrial heritage of Scotland's freshwaters. Another economic benefit from Scotland's freshwater is hydropower, which contributes just over 20% of the total electricity capacity in Scotland. For recreation, the rivers and lochs of Scotland provide some of our most important recreational resources, providing places for people to swim, to fish, to canoe, to watch nature or simply to relax. Around half of the 25,000 kilometres of rivers assessed by SEPA are in good or high status. Many of those rivers are relatively undisturbed by human activity when you compare them with the majority of rivers elsewhere in the UK and Europe. Nearly 2/3 of the 334 lochs that SEPA assesses are at good or high status, and the water quality in these has been improving over time. There's been significant progress in preventing and reducing pollution over the last few decades. Between 2000 and 2006, the length of rivers in Scotland that was affected by pollution was reduced by 37%. The main pressures on the freshwater environment are from agriculture, sewage disposal and hydropower, but climate change poses future risks to our freshwaters. For our freshwater wildlife, the overall ecological condition of Scotland's rivers is actually generally good, with healthy populations of many mammals, birds, fish, invertebrates and plants. The condition has improved over the past few decades, but some problems do remain. In many areas, increasing nutrient levels from land runoff and other sources continues to affect the state of our freshwater wildlife. Historical blockages to fish passage, such as weirs and dams, can still create problems for fish, although this is gradually being addressed through restoration and introduction of fish ladders and such measures. Invasive non-native species are particularly difficult to tackle in freshwaters due to the connectedness of waters and the many pathways for invasive species into them. This allows their introduction and spread. Almost 90% of the area of Scotland's groundwater has been assessed as having good water quality. Groundwater is used for private water supply in some areas of Scotland. There are concerns over the quality of many private water supplies in Scotland with problems from bacterial contamination. The Water Framework Directive is a major driver of work to improve the freshwater environment. This figure shows the targets for improvements by 2015, 2021 and 2027 for rivers, lochs and groundwater. These are ambitious targets and will require collaborative approaches involving water users and land managers. The River Basin Management Planning process brings many industry sectors, public bodies and non-governmental organisations together to develop initiatives for improving the environment. Alongside investment to reduce the effects we're having on the environment, there are also initiatives such as partnerships with farmers to reduce diffuse pollution from fields and funding to encourage habitat restoration.